Okay, so cinnamon rolls without yeast. Basically, what's going to get these to rise is a combination of the baking soda, the baking powder, and the buttermilk, because there's going to be kind of a chemical reaction that's going to get them to kind of puff up a little bit. So right here, I've got 4.5 cups of combined flour. What I did was I've got 2.5 cups of bread flour and then 2 cups of cake flour. So we're going to have a nice combination of some dense gluten, and then the cake flour will lighten it up. To this, I'm going to add 1/3 cup of sugar, and I'm going to pulse it. Just to combine it a little bit. All right. Now we're going to add some leavening. 1, 2.5 tablespoons of baking powder. 3/4 teaspoon of baking soda. We're also going to give this a little bit of salt, 1/2 teaspoon. And we're going to pulse it again. To this, I'm going to add cut up butter, about 13 tablespoons. So it's just over 1.5 sticks of butter. Now we're going to pulse this until we have kind of a consistency of like coarse cornmeal, or that the butter is going to be just smaller than small peas. It's almost as if you're making a pie crust. We want little nubs of butter in this so that as they melt, the cinnamon roll will be nice and flaky. Yeah, I think we're good. And to this, we're going to add 2 cups of well-shaken buttermilk. So here's my 2 cups of buttermilk, and what I did is added a teaspoon of vanilla to it and mixed it. And I'm going to pour it in. And I'm just going to pour it in all at once, and because I don't want to overwork this dough. So I just want to pulse it in and combine, just to combine it roughly. If I go slow, I'm going to overwork the dough. So pop it in all at once, pulse it up. Yes, it's sticky, it's messy, but it is just combined. So now I'm going to scrape this onto a floured work surface. Also, I've got my oven going at 400, and I have a parchment-lined baking sheet waiting for me. Okay, we're at our table, and I have a silk pat down. Here's my sticky dough that I just processed, and I'm going to let it sit for a few minutes, kind of let the gluten rest while I make the filling. Filling has got some spiciness to it and some deep molasses flavor, which you kind of want in a cinnamon roll. So we're going to start with our sugars, and I'm combining light and dark, just like kind of how I did the bread flour with the cake flour. So something that kind of lightens it, and another element that kind of deepens it. So so 1/4 cup of dark brown sugar, which you can just smell the hearty molasses flavor in here. And then 1/4 cup of the light. Now come our spices. I know my sister doesn't care for cinnamon, nor does her son. If you've got concerns around how much cinnamon to use, maybe back off a little bit. But I mean, these are called spicy cinnamon rolls for a reason. There's a lot of spice going on. We like flavor at our house, so that's a good tablespoon of cinnamon. We're also going to add a little something special here with some cardamom. Cardamom is so cool. When you smell it, it's so, there's like a floral element to it with the spice. I think it's what makes like chai like super interesting and exciting. We're gonna go with some nutmeg, because of course we are. And that's a half a teaspoon. I'm gonna be putting the recipe on the blog, you guys, so don't stress. But if you're keeping track. So yes, a lot of spice. And to brighten all this out, we've got a little bit of kosher salt. And I'm talking 1/8 of a teaspoon. So it's a healthy pinch. And give this a good mix. And don't do it as, oh my God, I feel like I've got my Julia Child on. I'm being so messy with this today. If you've never watched Julia Child on PBS, I did pretty much growing up. I think it's what started my love for cooking and baking at a very young age. But as I got older, I realized, A, she liked her wine, and you know what? That's okay. And the more wine she drank, the messier things got, which again is okay. But I haven't had wine today because it's Sunday morning and that's when you have cinnamon rolls. So I think I'm just a little sleepy and need some coffee. But anyway, I digress. So you're giving this a good mix and try to get some of the clumps out. Oh man, the cardamom, you can just smell it. So floral. Okay, this is just part of your filling. You still have to deal with, our butter, our honey, and some other things. But this is in a good spot. I'm gonna set that aside. And if you got some spices on your silpat, no big deal. I mean, it's all gonna end up in the same place anyway, so. Now it's time to work our dough, which is gonna be messy. Take some bread flour and generously cover your work area. And we're gonna scrape this sticky dough. Okay, sprinkle the top with some bread flour. And the bread flour is gonna help you kind of work this. But here's the key, gang. Don't overwork it. Remember those nubs of butter? We want those to kind of stay. So we're gonna treat this like almost like croissants. We're gonna fold over, one, pat, two, pat. And then you're going to push down each time. And then the final one, three. That was our third. And pat. That's all the kneading you're going to do. And now you can either pat this or roll this to about an 18 by 10 square. So to make the filling, and should I say finish the filling, because we already did the spices, right? But we need our butter. So this is 6 tablespoons of butter and 1/4 cup of floral honey. And I'm gonna melt this down. I like the honey because it's gonna bring the floralness out from the cardamom and bring out the earthiness of kind of the more molasses kind of flavors from the sugars. And I'm just nuking that in the microwave at like 3% power. Okay, this is nice and melted. And I'm gonna take a pastry brush and just really liberally get this butter all over the place. I'm gonna leave 1/4 left and I'm gonna sprinkle our mixture evenly. I'm gonna take what's left and just drizzle on the top. Oh man, this stuff's smelling so awesome. Okay, now I'm gonna just lightly flour my hand. And starting from one end or the other, wherever you're comfortable, you're gonna roll with, you know, the lengthwise side. I'm gonna start over here. You're gonna roll it up tightly. And you see how I rolled it back? If there's cracks, just kind of close up those seams. But I've rolled it back so that the seam is down. Now, this makes so many rolls. What I'm gonna do is I'm gonna cut some and bake some off today. Then I'm going to cut the rest and freeze them for Thanksgiving, the day after Thanksgiving, for the morning of my guests. Pull them out of the freezer the night before and bake them off. So I'm set my baking sheet. Here it is with parchment over here. My oven is nice and hot at 400. And I'm gonna cut them about 1 to 1.5 inches thick. Take the seam, tuck it under, and place it on a baking sheet. If you're finding that your serrated knife is a little sticky, rub it with some flour and keep going. Take that, tuck it under. So I'm going to stop right there. Here are 9 for just the family this morning. I'm going to bake them up for about 15 minutes or so. We'll check on them at 400. So for the rest of these, like I said, I'm going to bake them up the morning after Thanksgiving. So I've got some parchment in the bottom of this freezer bag. Set that aside. And then as I cut these, I'm going to gently put them in there. And then I'm going to freeze them. Freeze them flat. And then the night before, just remember to pull them out and defrost them. And if they're coming out of the fridge, let them sit out for a few minutes, and definitely it might take a few more minutes to bake them. Well, as usual, I wish YouTube had smell-o-vision because these smell incredible. And what we're looking for, so this is about 15 minutes at 400, and you've got nice golden edges. They're kind of set, they spring back to the touch. So we're gonna let these sit for about 10 minutes. And after 10 minutes, they're still gonna be slightly warm, and that's when we're gonna put the icing on. So while these are finishing up, they're cooling. Excuse my my neighborhood noises. So I'm doing only half of my icing. So this is a 1/2 tablespoon of melted butter. I'm gonna do a 1/4 cup of powdered sugar, 1 tablespoon of heavy cream, and a splash of vanilla. Mix this up until it's nice and smooth. Now you can either use a knife or you can drizzle. I think I'm just gonna drizzle. So just put a little bit on each one. And there you are. Delicious buttermilk, spicy cinnamon rolls. And I am going to have, what should I have? Which one should I have? I think I'm gonna have this one. It looks all spicy. So look how flaky this is as I talk with my mouth full. But no, seriously. See, all that flake comes from that butter that we didn't overwork. And the leavening is so lovely. You don't need yeast, right? The buttermilk and all that works out great. So that is, my neighborhood kids are loud today. That is theurbandomesticdiva.com, Fridays with Laura. Join me next week. We'll see what else we're up to. Definitely working through a gallon of butter, half a gallon of buttermilk. So if you don't know what to do with buttermilk, this is the week to be checking out the blog. I've got lots of ideas. So last week it was buttermilk cookies and buttermilk pie, and now we've got cinnamon rolls. So also check out the shop, you guys. It's holiday time, and I am an art director and designer by day, so there's really fun gifts at the urbandomesticdivashop.com. I'm also on Etsy, so check me out there. Bye!